Today on GreenCars The Podcast, we look back at the long, weird history of electric cars. It's a transportation sensation that's been nearly 200 years in the making. Find out more right now. Welcome to GreenCars The Podcast, where we talk about all things hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and all-electric vehicles. I'm Trish Close. Dave, we have quite the show for you today.
We do indeed. I'm Dave Nichols, and today we're going to reveal to you the amazing history of the electric car. Trish, you know, many people believe that Nikola Tesla invented the EV back in 1857, but that is clearly impossible because he was only about 2 years old at the time.
Okay, so you're saying Tesla did not invent the EV?
That is what I'm saying.
Okay.
We take you now back to a time before gasoline-powered vehicles, before they littered the interstate highways because there were no highways.
Right.
This is a time of long ago, Trish. This is a time when buggies, horses and buggies, and things of that nature were the order of the day. There were no cars.
This sounds like a history lesson.
It is that,
okay.
Yes.
All right.
It is that. Our producer thought that the Tesla vehicle was actually invented by Tesla the band from Sacramento because he's from Sacramento and he was hoping to get backstage passes.
Oh, that producer of ours.
I know. You know, a number of inventors were playing around with the idea of putting an electric motor into some sort of moving conveyance back almost 200 years ago. It was Scottish inventor Robert Anderson who first produced an actual full-size working horseless carriage in 1838.
1838. So you're right. Nikola Tesla wasn't even born yet. You were around, though, 1838?
Oh, yeah, I remember when they were pushing that thing through the streets. You know, dirt streets. That's all they had.
Right.
And they were pushing it through there, and I said, look at that. That's never going to fly. I remember.
Okay.
I was about 40.
Okay. All right, get back on track.
Okay. And so while Anderson's early EV raised a lot of eyebrows, it was really not very practical because the batteries in it were not rechargeable.
And weren't there experiments with electric trains going on right about at that same time?
Yes, there were.
Okay.
The first practical electric train was developed by another Scot named Robert Davidson, who tested his train on the Edinburgh-Glasgow Railway in 1842. But the limited power of the vehicle and crude batteries kept it from being practical. And after its test run, steam locomotive railway workers destroyed the prototype because they saw it as a threat to their future job security.
Wow, unbelievable. This really is a history lesson today.
Yes, and have you ever noticed that a good history lesson is always much more interesting if the presenter has an English accent?
Now that you mention it.
Yes, well, I found a delightful and informative video called Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About the History of Electric Cars. Check this out.
The electric revolution has well and truly begun, but vehicles powered by electricity aren't as new as you might think. So where did it all begin and how have we got to where we are now? Time for a brief history of electric cars. So let's start by jumping back 192 years to 1828, where Hungarian inventor, engineer and physicist Ányos Jedlik, considered by many to be the unsung father of the dynamo and electric motor, invented a revolutionary type of electric motor, creating a small model car powered by his motorised invention. 4 years later, Scottish inventor Robert Anderson was credited in Britain with developing the first electric carriage in 1832, half a century before the invention of the gasoline-fueled automobile. More developments followed in the 19th century, with the likes of Thomas Parker, who was involved in the electrification of the London Underground, built the first electric production car that used his own specially designed high-capacity rechargeable batteries in 1884. And then in 1897, Walter Bursey designed a fleet of electric battery-powered taxis in London, which were given the name hummingbirds due to the humming noise that they made. In 1898, Ferdinand Porsche presented their Egger-Lohner electric vehicle, known as the P1 for short, the world's first Porsche design. Hub-mounted motors drove the wheels, meaning the first ever Porsche car was electric. Porsche wouldn't make another until 2019 and the hugely impressive, highly regarded Porsche Taycan. At the end of the century, on April 29, 1899, a Belgian race car driver called Camille Janazzi was the first driver to go faster than 100 kilometers per hour in an electric vehicle he developed himself called Le Jamais Content, meaning never satisfied. A statement that remains true for many racing drivers today. At the beginning of the 20th century, a surge in popularity of electric cars hit the United States, with many US homes wired for electricity and influential inventors like Thomas Edison working on projects that would revolutionize the way people lived. At this point in time, 38% of cars in the US were powered by electricity.
You see?
Mm-hmm. You're right.
That British accent, it makes you want to believe everything the guy's got to say.
I not only believe it, I've absorbed it.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay,
It's
where do
now
we go?
part of you.
Where do we go from there?
Well, remember the bit about the Hummingbird Taxi Company?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, a company called Samuel's Electric Carriage and Wagon made electric taxi cabs all the rage in New York City in 1897. In fact, it was the very first cab company in the Big Apple. The company became the electric vehicle company in 1899, and soon there were over 1,000 EVs on the streets of New York.
Wow.
The following year, that company's cab was the first vehicle in America to ever get a speeding ticket.
Oh, no way. Okay, well, then why did we ever go to gasoline-powered taxis?
Well, the electric vehicle company had a massive fire in 1907. Hundreds of the cabs were destroyed. The company collapsed.
Yeah, that'll do it. A lot of questions for you. How many electric car companies existed by that time?
There were over 300 companies.
Okay.
And that's why the 1910s are known as the golden age of electric cars.
So then why did we ever convert to gasoline-powered vehicles?
Ah, yes. All this and more will be revealed. But first, let's hit the EV news.
Okay, here's what's up. According to Reuters, U.S. Transportation Department is awarding $148.8 million for projects in 20 states to repair or replace nearly 4,500 existing EV charging ports. The funds aim to help frustrated EV owners who stop to charge their vehicles at charging stations, only to find many EV chargers are out of service.
We get a lot of responses to our podcast from people who have that very problem. The Wall Street Journal ran a piece about the real-world difficulties encountered at charging stations. Reporter Joanna Stern traveled to 30 different charging locations in and around Los Angeles and ran into problems with 40% of them. The three main problems revolve around chargers that are out of order or have payment issues that make it impossible for you to use your credit card, or the connection issues that keep the charger or the car from being able to talk to each other.
I ran into that exact same problem, actually. It's not a simple issue when you have so many different vehicles, all with different software trying to talk to various charger network firmware. They get confused.
It's true. The funds that we mentioned will be used to upgrade older charging stations for more seamless integration. Fingers crossed.
Right. Well, meanwhile, New York Times reports hybrid cars are enjoying a renaissance as all electric sales slow. Automakers such as Ford, Kia, and Toyota are offering more hybrid options to appeal to buyers who aren't quite ready to go full electric.
Right. Consumers want the same experience they've had with combustion engine cars, said Stephanie Valdez-Streety, Director of Industry Insights at Cox Automotive. And we're just not there yet. Price is still the top barrier for most consumers.
Well, and here's some more numbers for you. Americans bought a record 1.2 million electric vehicles last year. That's a gain of about 46% and a 7.6% share of all new car sales. That's according to Cox. Hybrid sales, though, rose even faster, up 65% to more than 1.2 million.
Wow.
That's lifting their market share to 8% from 5.5%, and that's according to Edmunds. Throw in plug-in hybrids, and nearly 1 in 10 new cars on the road are some form of hybrid.
Amazing.
Absolutely amazing.
And now looking back to a similar conundrum in transportation, did you know that by 1910, 40% of vehicles were steam-powered, 38% were electric-powered, and just 22% were gasoline-powered?
Wow. Also, when you say, did you know in this show, it's usually going to be a no from me, Dave, but we'll continue on with the questions. So wait, 40% you said were steam-powered.
Yes.
That's wild.
Yeah, but see, early steam-powered vehicles were very fiddly, and it took at least 45 minutes for the tanks of water in them to heat up and become steam.
Right. Okay, so electric carriages were used by wealthy citygoers. These are folks we're talking about with cash, especially women, because unlike gasoline vehicles, they didn't make people or horses angry.
Yes, it's true.
Okay.
Gas cars were very loud. Right. They backfired. They smelled bad. They spewed exhaust in the air everywhere. And you had to hand crank them to start them. So women hated that.
Yeah, that sounds awful. No, thank you.
Meanwhile, EVs were quiet. They were clean. They didn't make any noise. They didn't make the horses go crazy. And keep in mind that by 1915, most well-to-do households in America were already plumbed for electricity. So it was easy to recharge your EV at home.
Right. But they were expensive, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about most electric vehicles of that time. These were luxury coaches that cost more than $2,000. That's about $65,000 today.
Exactly right. And that is when Henry Ford changed the world of transportation. He created a car for the average person's budget and began mass producing the Model T on a moving assembly line to keep costs down. By the early 1920s, more than half of the registered cars in the world were Fords. And by 1927, over 15 million Model Ts had been built and sold. You could buy one for less than $300.
And at the same time, new roads were being built. So that's adding the need for more range. By the 1920s, gasoline cars could travel farther and faster than any really electric vehicle.
That's correct. And that is how gasoline cars came to rule the world for the last 100 years.
Who could have predicted polluting greenhouse gases from all of those cars would lead us to rethink electric cars?
And before we continue on this epic journey, our own Jesse Hitty recently discovered a 1914 Detroit Electric, the car that Henry Ford's wife Clara drove, and it's still running.
Wow.
All right, I'm Jesse with GreenCars, and I'm here at the Oregon Electric Vehicle Association's EV Test Drive event in Portland, Oregon. And I'm here with Tony, who's got a very, very unique EV. So, Tony, what is this?
Well, this is a 1914 Detroit Electric, and it comes from, we have it in our museum in Hood River, the Western Antique and Automobile Museum, WAM we call it. So it's a 1914 Detroit Electric. So it was manufactured in Detroit by the Detroit Electric Company, which was previously the Anderson Carriage Company. It has two battery packs, one in the front, one in the back. Each one would have been nominally 42 volts. It has a 3 horsepower DC motor, has 5 speeds.
Okay.
And it was marketed for rich urban ladies because the car was very expensive. In 1914, this car cost $3,200, which is $100,000 in today's money.
How long would it take to charge one of these?
This would charge overnight. It'd take about 8 hours.
Okay. Wow, okay. And about how much range do you get?
80 miles. Back then,
wow.
It had a range of 80 miles. Only a speed of about 25.
That is pretty impressive. Okay. Well, is there any other nuances to this car that you want to point out?
Well, it's kind of interesting in the fact that it doesn't have a steering wheel. It has a steering tiller.
Oh, okay.
That's how you steer it. And it has a speed tiller, which it had 1 of 5 speeds that you could select, and that's how you made it go.
Wow, okay. And then you've got a pedal here on the floor, it looks like.
Yeah, it does have a rear wheel brake. Also, this car was one of the very first cars to have curved glass windows in it.
Wow.
Unique, yeah.
And it's even got like shades and stuff too.
Cut glass interior lights, a bud vase, shades. It was a very luxurious car. And in fact, there's a car identical to this one in the Ford Museum because this is the car that Henry Ford's wife drove.
Wow.
The Model T. She didn't want to hand crank it and she wanted it nice and quiet.
Wow, that's definitely luxury, that's for sure. And so my next question is can we go for a ride?
Absolutely. We'd
All
love to
right.
take you for a ride.
All right, let's do it.
Well, the thing is a little bit unique about this vehicle. It doesn't have a steering wheel. It have a steering tiller. So it's gone like this. We have a speed tiller where you had 1 of 5 gears that you could select. And actually, they're not gears. They're just different positions in the motor. It's interesting in that all the switching and everything is taken care of mechanically, meaning that there are large plates of copper attached to a dowel, a wooden dowel that rotates with a speed tiller and comes in contact with one or a series of the 10 fingers in this controller. And that's what controls everything. So there are no rheostats, no capacitors.
All
no
completely mechanical, right?
Completely mechanical.
That's amazing. Okay. And so you said that there was also a battery option, so you could actually get greater capacity.
Correct. So this car came equipped with what were called Edison cells because they were designed, manufactured, and guaranteed for 80 years by Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison thought the electric vehicle was going to take off and be the wave of the future. And of course, he was correct, but he was 100 years too early. So he created his own cells, which are actually nickel iron cells.
Okay.
And they're very robust, very tough batteries that in fact could still be used 100 years later. People have said that the battery life on those is undetermined because all of them could be rebuilt and they're used even now.
So I imagine the light bulbs in this car are also made by Edison, correct?
Well, yeah, they might be. I hadn't thought about that. Here's another little interesting aspect of this. In order to make this car go backwards, you take the speed tiller, bring it up 45 degrees, and then you push it forward, and it makes you go backwards. So it's a little bit different. Again, it all comes down to the switching capability and the fact that we don't have any relays or anything like that. It's all mechanical, so there's a mechanical switch at the bottom.
Okay. And I see down here you've got some buttons. What do those do?
Those are individual buttons for the interior cut glass interior lights, our carriage lights, the headlights, one little light in the back. No stoplights or turn signals, but one little light in the back.
How about cruise control?
No cruise control, yes.
Okay, so it was before that was invented then.
That for sure.
All right. Well, that was a really fun ride. I appreciate you taking us for a ride. And yeah, I think we'll talk to you later.
Thank you very much, Jesse, for showing our vehicle. We're very proud of it, and we invite people to come out and visit us at the Wham Museum in Hood River.
Definitely recommend it.
Should be proud of that car. It's still running. That's mind-blowing.
Indeed.
Absolutely incredible.
And as you might imagine, by 1935, all the electric car companies that were still around had either converted to gasoline-powered cars or they were out of business.
And whenever gasoline becomes scarce, and we've seen this a couple times in our history, electric cars tend to re-emerge. After World War II, gas was hard to come by and very expensive in Japan. The Tama company produced electric cars as taxi cabs, and today that company is called Nissan.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and American Motors, remember them? They investigated producing an EV with a self-charging battery in 1959. Several concept cars appeared in the early 1960s, including General Motors' 1964 Corvair-based Electrovair. Yeah. Its silver zinc batteries made it 800 pounds heavier than a regular Corvair, and its top speed was about 80 miles an hour. So the Electrovair never really made it into production.
Shocker. You're right. This history is very long and weird when it comes to electric cars. Mm-hmm. General Electric introduced its Delta experimental electric car. This was in 1967. The prototype could manage 55 miles per hour, had a range of 40 miles, which, I mean, nothing to write home about by today's standards.
But then something happened that put electric vehicles back on the front burner. It was called the energy crisis. And here's the short version of what happened next.
During the energy crisis in the 1970s, a barrel of oil that cost $3 spiked to $15. Not only did gasoline become scarce and expensive, but there were long lines at pumps across the country. In response, many U.S. automakers introduced electric models. In 1976, the Electric and Hybrid Vehicle Research, Development, and Demonstration Act was passed, offering car makers incentives to build green cars. The list of would-be electric car companies was long, but the technology wasn't where it needed to be yet. In the 1980s, the lithium-ion battery was invented. This battery technology is at the center of today's long-distance, powerful electric cars. As the fuel crisis waned, governments became more interested in curbing air pollution due to the discovery of a hole in the ozone layer. new federal and state regulations began to change in the U.S. The Clean Air Act Amendment of 1990 and the Energy Policy Act of 1992 helped create interest in renewable energy and reducing emissions. This started the push to eliminate the use of fossil fuel vehicles and prompted the development of zero-emission vehicles. Ford, Honda, Nissan, Chrysler, and GM all developed zero-emission cars.
So that led then to the modern EVs that we enjoy today?
Almost.
What are you talking about, Dave?
There was a bit of a hiccup along the way.
Okay.
It was called General Motors EV1. Its production and then complete destruction were the foundation of a 2006 documentary called Who Killed the Electric Car? The film by Chris Payne explores the roles of automakers, the oil industry, the federal government, and California in limiting the production of EV technology.
But the California Air Resources Board passed the zero emissions vehicle mandate in 1990.
And the film explains how that mandate was reversed after CARB relentlessly was being pressured by big players in the oil industry, automakers and manufacturers, and wanted to make sure that the gasoline kept flowing.
Wow, crazy.
Yep. Which brings us to our special guest today, actress and activist Alexandra Paul.
I know her. She was on Baywatch.
She certainly was. She's a longtime EV advocate. Alexandra protested the fact that General Motors pulled back the EV1 in order to have the vehicle destroyed. Alexandra appears in the movie Who Killed the Electric Car and was arrested in a protest that attempted to block GM car carriers that were about to take the remaining EV1 cars off to be crushed.
Whew, Alexandra, we are so excited to have you on the podcast today. Good to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy, and congratulations on the podcast. I've seen it and I'm a fan.
Oh, yay. We like to hear that. Before we get into EVs, I have to ask, you've been acting for a hot minute. You've done some fabulous work. How did you get into acting?
I got into acting because I was modeling first in New York City, and a TV movie back then in 1981, there were ABC and CBS TV movies of the week. I'm dating myself, but yes, I was 18 and I auditioned as a model for a TV movie that was about models. And so they were looking for an unknown girl to play the lead. And I was the lucky girl chosen to move to LA and shoot this TV movie, which did really well. It was called Paper Dolls. And it also starred Daryl Hannah. And it was one of the top 5 TV movies of that year, which was a big deal. And so that helped me so much get into the business.
Oh, for sure. And a lot of people obviously know you from your days on Baywatch, but you've done so many other things and you've had this incredible career acting. That's not even talking about your journey with electric vehicles. So let's talk about that a little bit. Why EVs and what were some of your first electric vehicles?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I came to the electric vehicle world as an environmentalist. A lot of the early adopters were people who either were really technical whizzes and very interested in the technology, or they wanted to be first on the block. I didn't care about either of those things. I didn't care about cars at all. I was an environmentalist. And in 1989, the Exxon Valdez spilled. And I was all like up on my high horse. I even wrote in with soap, boycott Exxon on the back of my GM Jimmy, which was an SUV. Now it looks like a tiny SUV, but it was an SUV nonetheless. And then I realized, oh my gosh, Alexandra, your car, you are the reason that that Exxon Valdez oil tanker was out there in the first place. So you should stop being a hypocrite and you should start walking your talk. And I got my first electric car in 1990. And it was a Datsun that was converted in someone's garage, and it went 25 miles on a charge.
Wow.
I want to clarify for younger audiences that the Exxon Valdez was an oil tanker that spilled off the pristine waters of the Alaska shoreline. And so it devastated that shoreline. It was a big deal back then.
Well, tell us a little bit about the EV1. How did you come to own one, or did you lease one?
Well, I heard about the EV1. It was much talked about in the environmental community, right? And it was after my first Datsun, I got a second car that went 50 miles per charge, but then I heard about the EV1 that got almost 100 miles per charge. The second incarnation of the EV1 got it like 120 with its Panasonic batteries, but the first EV1 was getting around just under 100, and it looked amazing. It was the only car out there that was built from the ground up to be an electric car. So it was built really aerodynamically, and I applied for it, actually. You had to apply. There was quite a long process on the internet that you had to go through to apply or go into the dealership directly. And on the very first day that they were released to the public, which was in December 1996, I went to the dealership and picked up my car, which was car number 37. It was the first car leased. It was the lowest number car leased to the public. And it wasn't because I was so great. It was just because I picked dark forest green, and that happened to be a low number car. But yeah, so I was ecstatic. And it was like driving a rocket ship. It was such an amazingly high performance car.
And so what happened when you eventually had to turn in your leased car?
Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So I had the car for 6 years. And when the California Air Resources Board decided that they weren't going to mandate that the top 8 car companies had to make some zero emission cars, then these car companies all decided, well, if we're not going to be mandated, we're not going to make them anymore. So they decided that they would not renew our leases. And I begged them. I called. I said, I will pay in advance. I will buy the car. Just let me keep it. And they said no. And they brought a tow truck to my house. And I do not like, I've never been a car fan, but I was very emotional when that car was taken away. And I wept. And I documented the whole thing. It's in my photo album. And it was a big loss, because that car, I felt, was a symbol of a future where maybe we could get off oil and solve so many of our national security or pollution problems.
Also, though, that car was the center of what seems like so much controversy, especially with GM. So take us back to March 2005 and a little thing called a protest that you were involved in.
Yes. So my car had to go back in 2000, I think it was 3 or 2, because I was the first day of leasing, right? So they pulled my car very early, and I moved into a Toyota RAV4, which was another car that we mandated Toyota to make these cars too, because it was a big seller in California. The top 8 car sellers had to make some zero emission cars. But I still mourned the EV1, and it was discovered that GM was crushing the EV1s that they were taking back from lessors, from drivers. And this was stunning, because the EV1 was such a marvel of technology, and it was the only car built from the ground up of any car company that was putting out electric cars there. And here GM was taking perfectly good cars and crushing them. And so somebody found out that 78 of them, of these EV1s that were being taken from drivers, were sitting in a lot in Burbank, California, waiting to be brought to a crusher in Arizona. And so protesters, a lot of drivers of electric cars, environmental protesters, technology buffs gathered in front of this facility and started a vigil, a 24/7 vigil, to watch, to make sure that these cars were not removed to bring to the crusher. And I was one of those people who was there at the vigil and took on a daily 4-hour vigil where I would watch. And for 27 days, we ended up, that's like over 200 shifts we had to fill of people watching to make sure that the cars were not removed.
Obviously, though, this car meant so much to you, and it sounds like your heart really was with this. And so it makes sense that you and so many other people out there were making sure that these cars were not going to get crushed.
There was so much passion among so many of the early EV adopters because we saw this as a rollback. And not only a rollback environmentally, but also for national security reasons. The Iraq War had started, and that was clearly oil was an issue in those problems in the Middle East. And of course, the cost of gasoline was going up also at the time. So it really seemed like it was corporate corruption or government corruption or what was going on that these perfectly good cars that so many people wanted, but the car companies were saying people didn't want, why were they being crushed?
And didn't you even try to put together some money, raise some money to purchase the cars? I heard that the group put together quite a lot of money to purchase all the vehicles, but GM would have none of it.
We raised $1.9 million. It's like $25,000 a car we were willing to pay. And no, GM rebuffed us right there, then and there. We were out there for 27 days at the vigil. And on the 27th day, and I happened to be actually on watch at that time, they started moving. A transport truck drove in, and they started moving the vehicles onto the transport truck. So we knew they were going to start removing cars and crushing them. And that was when the vigil turned into a civil disobedience and a protest.
And that's where your arrest comes in, correct?
Yes, that is. I had already committed that if they tried to remove the cars, that we would block the entrance and exit. They sent 20 Burbank police over to try and get us out of the car. And finally, when they said that they were going to break the window, and I am I'm trained in peaceful civil disobedience. And so we agreed to get out, and we went to the Burbank jail. But what we had wanted was already accomplished, which was there was a lot of media there, and attention was being paid to the fact that these beautiful cars were being crushed needlessly, even though there were so many people who wanted to buy them.
So looking back, here we are, a couple of decades later, we have major car companies saying they're going to switch to all electric cars in several years, and you were arrested in a protest. I guess looking back, what do you think about all of that?
Oh, gosh. I have been an activist since I was 7 when I first wrote to President Nixon and asked him to stop pollution. And I have to say that a lot of activism that we do we don't see any change in our lifetime. But this is the one issue where I really believe that the activists that were fighting for electric cars back in the early 2000s and the ones who were driving them in the 1990s and before, we really made a difference. And I believe that, and we have seen a change. So we're full of pride. And of course, I'm still in touch with my activist friends from then too. And we're all driving various EVs. When we talk to each other, the first thing we ask is, hey, what are you driving? Which is hilarious for me, who never cared about cars. And I only care about electric cars now to this day. Even though my very first movie was about a car. It was called Christine, and it was about it was a gas guzzler too. If I, 1957 Plymouth Fury, or maybe it was a 58. You see, I don't even know, even though I starred in that movie, because it was a gas car.
Well, and That's probably what drove you to EVs, right? Is the horror of dealing with Christine, the gas car.
That's right. That's right. Gas cars, they're a menace.
But ironically, you were also a GM spokesperson at one point, weren't you?
Oh my gosh, I know. And so we activists always gave GM a lot of credit for creating the EV1 in the first place. I mean, it was a spectacular car. I would park it if I was, driving around LA and I would have to park it on the street to do errands. Whenever I came out, there would be people all around it looking at it and just fascinated by the technology and the beauty of the car and the novelty of it. And GM deserved that kind of attention. So GM came to me and asked if I would like to be the spokesperson for the Chevy Volt, because they felt that I was very credible because I had fought so hard for the EV1. And you got to give them credit, because I talked a lot of dirt about GM. It's true. Even though I love their car, I talked a lot about the bad stuff about the corporation, and they still came back to me and said, hey, would you be our spokesperson? And I said, yes, because I admire you for trying again. And, I'm not one to bear a grudge either. So I did drive a Chevy Volt for, I think 6 years, until I got the Chevy Bolt. So I'm still a Chevy GM driver. We need to support this new technology. And I think car companies need as much help with the cars and the infrastructure from the federal government so that it can move forward, and so that we can, power our cars cleanly with solar panels. So there's many aspects of this that still need to be supported. We cannot abandon the car companies now just because, there's a lot on the road, and 1.2 million cars were sold last year that were electric. We have to keep subsidizing and supporting this new technology if it's really going to take hold.
Well, and we couldn't agree with you more. We want to thank you for your time today, Alexandra, and we hope to speak with you again soon.
Oh, you guys are so great. Thank you for spreading the EV word. Really appreciate it very, very much.
Well, thank you. You are a fabulous storyteller, Miss Alexandra Paul. Thank you.
That's so nice of you. You guys are great.
How about that?
Love it.
A Baywatch star right here on GreenCars The Podcast.
She is great. She is super awesome.
Trish, let's finish up this episode by catching up with the past 40 years of EV history with that guy with the British accent.
That sounds good to me.
Now jump forward to 1971 and electric vehicles go stratospheric. Literally. The first off-planet automobile ride took place in an electric car on the surface of the moon in 1971. Named the Lunar Roving Vehicle but affectionately known as the Moon Buggy, this electric vehicle was developed by Boeing and General Motors subsidiary Delco Electronics. After nearly a century of oil-powered vehicles emitting pollutants and damaging the environment, the Clean Air Act Amendment and the Energy Policy Act of 1992 resulted in car manufacturers focusing increasingly on alternative fuel vehicles. In 1997, GM introduced the EV1, making more than 1,000 of the sleek two-seaters and leasing them to customers in California and the southwest of the United States. In the same year, the first mass-produced hybrids also went on sale, the Toyota Prius and the Honda Insight. 2004 brought with it the development of the Tesla Roadster, the first highway-legal serial production all-electric car to use lithium-ion battery cells, with a range of more than 320 kilometers per charge. Impressive, considering that was 16 years ago. In 2010, Nissan made history by introducing the Nissan Leaf, which would become the world's top-selling plug-in electric car for almost a decade, and is still going strong today with an updated, all-new version released earlier this year. Electric vehicles broke new ground in 2014 with the debut Formula E race in Beijing. The first single-seater all-electric championship has gone from strength to strength and has since become home to some of the world's largest manufacturers who use the data and developments learned from racing to directly advance their road offerings, improving performance and things like range, efficiency, and charging time. Echoing the Le Jamais Content 1899 speed record, VW showcased the record-breaking performance capabilities of EVs by setting a new record in 2018 on the century-old Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, driving the 12.42 miles in 7 minutes and 57 seconds, beating Sebastian Loeb's 8-minute 13-second 2013 record. So where are electric vehicles at now? The last 5 years has seen a 565% global increase in electric cars on the road. And by the end of 2020 in Europe, manufacturers will be offering more than 214 models. According to analysis, by 2025, electric vehicles will make up 22% of the vehicles produced in the EU and close to 50% come 2030. Regulations and environmental commitments around the world are marking the end of petrol and diesel-powered car sales, in some countries as soon as 2030. There's never been more focus on electric vehicles, and we're likely to see rapid development and growth in EVs over the coming years.
That guy.
I know, I love that guy.
We love that guy.
We want him every week.
Yeah, let's get in touch with his agent. Let's make it happen. We love that guy.
We should mention that that film is probably a few years old,
Okay.
and the cost of both batteries and EVs continues to drop. In fact, according to Business Insider, the cost of EVs could be the same as gasoline cars by 2025.
Wild. Also, according to the International Energy Agency, there are more than, get this, 26 million electric cars currently on roads worldwide.
Seems like a great place to end this episode of GreenCars The Podcast.
And we told you it was going to be a big one. When it comes to EVs, stay informed, stay charged. We'll see you next time. Follow us at GreenCars HQ. Email us at thepodcast@greencars.com.